Hi there, welcome to the complete React.js crash course for beginner. Firstly, we'll start with what is React.js and its fundamental. Then we'll build a to-do web app and see how we can build awesome UI app using React.js. I highly recommend you to code along with me while watching this video so that you can solidify your concept. Now, before we begin, I would like to tell you that make sure you install Node.js. So you need to come to this website Node.js and make sure you install Node.js in your system. And now that you have installed Node.js, now let us move forward and see what is React.js actually. So here I'm in the React.js website. It is reactjs.org. So if you come here and see here, it is written React, a JavaScript library for building user interface. So basically React.js is a UI library that is built on top of JavaScript so that you can build amazing front-end application. And here, in order to start with React application, I'm going to use a front-end tooling called Vite. So this is what we are going to use it. So you just visit this website vitejs.dev and you need to come here and then just click this button get started and you just scroll it down, and as you can see these are the commands that I'm going to use to start with the React application. But before we start this, let us discuss some of the features of React, like why should we use React. So basically one of the prime feature of React is reusable component. So in React basically we have this component where every single UI element we think it as a component. Let's just say you are saying this as a navbar, so you can create a separate component of navbar. And now once you have built this navbar component, you have written the code once, now you can use it multiple times. You just need to call this component wherever you want to use this navbar, and at that moment of time you just call that component and that navbar gets triggered out there. You don't need to write the code again and again. And similarly, as you can see, this is a button get started here, right? So you can build completely a separate component for this button, and wherever you need that button you can call that button component and you can get that button. So basically that's what we do in React. We build smaller component and we use that component again and again, so it helps us to reuse our code. And the other is it gives you JSX. So JSX is basically HTML like syntax for building the web page that we'll discuss. And another importance of React, or the feature of React, is virtual DOM. So basically when you are updating the DOM using JavaScript, so you are actually interacting with the real DOM, but React gives you virtual DOM where actually it updates faster. React basically has its own process of updating the DOM. You don't directly interact with the real DOM. You just changes the UI elements using the state or the props. I'll discuss what is state or the props when we'll start with the tutorial. So based on the state or the props changes, so React updates its virtual DOM and then the virtual DOM updates the real DOM. Basically that's what it is in React. So virtual DOM helps to load the website faster and make it more interactable. Okay, and the another importance of React is it is like performance heavy. You can improve the performance of your application. And the last point would be it is very popular in the industry, right? A lots of job role are opening in React.js, so it is also good to learn React. So basically these are the important features of React. So why you need to learn React in the first place. Okay, now you might be thinking, how do we start with the React? How do we build our first app, right? So here, if you come here, and then as you can see here, you just scroll out here and you will get this create React app. So before that, let me tell you what this video is going to look like. So firstly, I'm going to start with the basic concepts of React. I'm going to discuss basic React concepts. After that, we are going to build a to-do web application where we are going to learn React in a much better way. Okay, and you can see here I've clicked on this create a new React app. And if you want to create a new React app, what you need to do is you need to open your terminal and write this command npx create React app and your app name, and then you just need to cd into this your app folder and you need to write npm start, and then your app is going to start. But we are not going to follow this because this is little bit slow, and that's why we are going to use this void, which is a front-end tooling. So we are going to use this command instead. So you just come to this website and just copy this command. Okay, and what you need to do is, so the command is very simple. You can type also, it's npm create void at the latest. So I'm just copying here, and what you need to do is you just come here and you open your terminal. So your terminal needs to be interactive. Don't open gitbash because gitbash is not interactive. Open your Windows terminal or PowerShell, and you just paste the command here. Okay, and hit enter. After that, you are going to get some of the options here. Just wait for a minute, and then there you go. I got an option. I need to name my project. So this is a React crash course. So I'm just naming it as React crash course. Okay, so let me type it correctly. So it is going to be crash course, and let me hit enter. And once it is done, it is saying me what kind of project I want to initiate with vanilla, Vue or React. So I want to start with React, and again it is giving me some more option. Do I want to start with JavaScript or TypeScript? Well, I want to start with JavaScript in this case. And there you go, we are done. And now what you need to do is, I need to cd into this React crash course. So here the command is being listed. Then I need to run this npm install and npm run dev. So let me just cd here, cd React crash course. Okay, just type out here, and then after that you just hit npm install command. Okay, and it is going to take some few seconds out there. It is going to install all the package necessary to run this application, right? And once that is done, you need to run this npm run dev command, and well, you're ready to go with your React app. So well, let's just wait for a few seconds. Okay, so we are done with the installation part. Now let me clear this first here, and now let me run this command npm run dev. Now it is going to run the React project. Now if you open this link here, localhost, then as you can see, our React app is up and running here. And now let me open the VS Code, and let me open that folder, React folder. Okay, not file, I want to open the folder here. And let me go to the desktop, and there you go, we have React crash course. So let me open this folder, and as you can see, so there are different folder structure. Don't worry, I'm going to explain all the folder structure one by one. It's pretty simple. The firstly, we have this package.json. So basically it lists out all the packages that we will be using while building this React app. Whatever the packages will be installing, all that listing is going to be here inside this package.json. As you can see, we are using React as a package, we're using React DOM. So these are the different listing out here. And the another thing is get ignore. So basically these are the thing or the file that will be ignoring while we are pushing our code onto the GitHub. And then the another thing is we have this index.html file. I'm going to come off here in a letter. Okay, and what do we have is, we inside this public folder we have this wide logo, which we don't need. Actually we can delete it, and I'm just going to delete it. So this is just a boilerplate code out here. And another thing is we have this node modules folder. So basically this is the list of the packages that we might be using inside this project. So we are not going to touch this. These are just an external packages. Okay, and the public folder is pretty much empty, and I've explained you what is index.html. So I'm going to explain it you in a bit. And let me open this src folder. Src stands for source, and inside that we have some of the files, css and jsx file. And we have this another folder called assets. So inside this asset also you're going to have a logo, which we can delete it. We don't need it. This is just a boilerplate. And now the asset folder is also empty. Now let us discuss this for files. So first let me open this main.jsx here, and now let me open this app.jsx as well, and app.css. Wait, let me open this here, and let me open this index.css as well. Okay, now basically these files are called component in React. So this app.jsx is basically an app component in React. As you can see, we have this app function, so this is called a component. All right, and similarly we have this another main component here, main.jsx file. So basically whatever the code we write inside this app.jsx, this app component, we are going to call this app component here inside this main file. See, you can see that I'm calling here, this is how you call the component, and then you need to import it as well. Okay, and this app component is going to be attached inside your index.html file here. So how it is, let me show you. So here you can see we have this react dom.create root. So this is actually responsible for doing so. Here it is grabbing the root id, HTML element which is having the root id. Now if we come to this index.html file, you can see that we have this div which is having an id of root. So basically this is grabbing this div, and then what is going to happen is whatever the code that we have written inside this app.js file or the app component, this app component is being called here, and then this app component code later is going to be pasted here inside this root. Okay, so basically whatever the code that we are going to write here via React, all that code is going to be converted into HTML, and then it is going to come off here in this index.html file. So this is the basically role of index.html file, and we will not be touching this all. This is automatically done by React only. So let me close this index.html file here, and now let us discuss this app.js file. As you can see, everything, this white plus React, and this is visible here. If you come here right now, it is giving me an error. Okay, because I have imported some of the logo which I have deleted, and we can clear this code also. This is just a random boilerplate code which we don't need it. Actually, we can simply delete it. We don't need this thing, we don't need this and this, so we can make our code look more cleaner. And as you can see, the file is empty as of now. Here I have removed all the boilerplate code, and let me remove this as well, we don't need here. And let us come to the code here, and as you can see, we have this app.css file where we have tons of CSS which we basically don't need it. So I can remove this from here, and also from here as well. I can just simply remove it, and from here also let me remove this. So these are the boilerplate code that we'll be removing. And you know what, let me remove this as well, and this. For now I'm going to keep this CSS styling here because I want this black and white color theming. Okay, and now the CSS files are clean, our app.js file is also completely clean, and we have this main.js file where we are calling this app.js file, and this main.js is inserted into this index.html, and that's how this web page is being served. Well, I've explained that. So basically, in simple term, this app is the root component. So whatever the component we build inside the React, all needs to be called inside this app component. App component gets called here, and then from here it gets pasted in the index.html file, and then index.html file is going to serve as the web page. Okay, so if I come here and then like if I start writing let's just say hello React, then you can see that. So let me write it hello React, and let me save, and as you can see, hello React is visible here. Okay, now let me deep dive into the component. So how do we build a component? So it's pretty much simple. You need to come inside this src or the source folder, and then here you need to write a file basically. Okay, and then you just name a file whatever you want to write it. Let's just say you want to build a product component, so you just write product.jsx. okay, the file extension should be JSX. Okay, so I'll discuss why it should be JSX and when it should be JS later. So first let's see how do we build a component in React, because the building block in React is a component. So let us see first that one. So you just need to write a normal JavaScript function, and we are building a product component. So let us name this component as product only. Okay, and there you go, you have built a JavaScript component. Now what you need to do is you just need to return here, and then you need to return your HTML element, or basically we call it JSX here. So it actually seems like HTML only. So this is a div which is a JSX that we are returning. So this is your simple component in React. So this is how you build it. Now what you need to do is you need to export this component as well, so that you can import in this app component, because I told you that app is the root component. So all the components somehow needs to be called into this app component. So let me export this component first. So for that you need to write export default and the name of the component, that is the product. That's all. Okay, now inside this div, let me write the h1 tag and say hello product. Okay, so let me just do that. Okay, and then I've exported this product component. Let me come to this app and let me come here and let me just import it. So I'm just going to say product and it is going to suggest me. I'm just going to click and I'm going to call. So this is how you're going to call the component in React. You're going to write the angular bracket and then you're going to name the component name and you need to close it by giving the forward slash, and make sure you import that component as well. VS Code has auto imported for me. For you, you need to import it manually. And that's all. Now if you go here and as you can see, hello product is written out here. So that is how you build component in React. Now that component is clear, let us discuss what is JSX. So basically we cannot write HTML syntax inside React. We need to write JSX. So JSX looks exactly like HTML only. As you can see, we have div tag, h1 tag, right? So this is basically JSX. But as you know that whenever we are writing the class in HTML, we just used to write class. But since class is a reserved keyword in React, so instead of writing class, we write class name here. And similarly, let's just say if you're writing label tag in HTML, okay, let me just type it out correctly. If you we used to write here instead of HTML4, we used to write 4 here, right? Okay, let me remove that. We used to write 4 in this way in case of HTML, but well, in case of JSX we just write HTML4 in this way. So there are some minor differences between JSX and HTML, but overall they are the same. And let's just say in case of events also, like if you want to write an on click events in HTML, we just used to do on and click. Okay, and that's how we used to build an on click event. But in case of React, we follow camel case structures, meaning that this C is going to be in capital letter. And similarly, if there was an on key up event, then this is how we used to write in case of HTML. But if you are writing in case of React, then what you need to do is again the camel case structure. So the first letter K is going to be capital, and again the another first letter U, that is also going to be capital. Okay, so this is how you're going to name your events in case of JSX. Okay, so that's how it is going to work here in React. Now that we are done with what is component in React and what is JSX, now let us see that where do we write actually the JavaScript code. So the JavaScript part is we are going to write here. So this is the area where we are going to write our JavaScript code. So in this area we'll be writing JavaScript code, and this is the part where we'll be writing our JSX or the HTML part. And for styling, well, we have this separate CSS file where we write the CSS code, and we just import our CSS file, and that's how the style is going to affect. Okay, and let's just say I'm going to write a JavaScript code here. Let's just say it is going to be number1. I'm going to write a variable called number1 and I'm going to make it 4. And now how do I ensure this value inside the HTML or inside the JSX? So in JavaScript we used to grab the DOM element and we used to set dot value equals to number1, but in case of React it's pretty simple. Let me show you here. Let's just say you want to insert inside the paragraph tag. So open this paragraph tag and you just need to create a curly braces here. You just need to write a curly braces and you just write your expression, write your variable, and that's how you can insert your JavaScript inside the JSX or the HTML. It's pretty simple. And now if you come here and as you can see here 4 is visible. Okay, and now let me remove this. Oh, that is gone already. And let's just say you want to create an expression. Now it is 4. Let's just say you can create an expression as well. You can do +5. Well, now it is going to output 9 here. You can see it's pretty simple. So basically that's how you're going to write your JavaScript here in this part, and you're going to write your HTML or the JSX in this part here, and this is where you're going to write the CSS. But you can do inline styling as well, but there's a bit of different when you are doing the inline styling. What you need to do is you need to just hit this style tag and it is going to open this equal to and curly braces. Now inside this you need to add one more curly braces, and now you can write your styling. Let's just say you are doing color, and now you can write the color which is red. Okay, for that again you need to write inside this, and that's all, you are done. And as you can see, red color is visible. Let's just say you want to add more styling, you want to add background color, then you need to separate it with comma, and you just need to write background. Notice in CSS that we used to write in this format, background hyphen color, but in this case, in case of React, when you are using inline styling, we follow camel casing. We don't give hyphen, we just write capital C. Okay, and then what you can do is you can write yellow here. Okay, you can make the background yellow, and similarly, let's just say you want to give the font size. So similarly, we don't give hyphen, instead we can write S capital and we give font size. Let's just say I'm going to make it 60 pixel. Okay, that, there you go. Now let's just save this, and as you can see, the style is getting reflected on the web page. So that's how you add inline styling. Now let me remove this as of now. Let me remove it from here. Now that we are familiar with some of the basic concepts of React, let us discuss two of the most important concepts in React, that are props and stat. And it is one of the most asked interview questions as well, and it is one of the most important concepts in React. React actually depends on these two things. These are props and state. So let us discuss what is props and state. Let us start with props. So props basically is a way of passing data from parent component to the child component. So this app is a parent component in React, right? And inside this app, which is a app component, this is a parent component. So inside this app component, we are calling another component called this product component. So this is the component that we are calling inside this app component. So now this product component is a child component, and this app component becomes parent component. And let's just say you want to pass some data from this parent component to the child component, then how do you pass that data? So we pass that data using props. So let's just say you want to pass the title of this product component, okay, from this app component. So you can do that. So you just write const title here, and you just say fancy, okay, fancy product page. So let's just say this is a title, and you want to pass this title from this app, which is a parent component, to the product component. So you can do that using props. So props are the way to pass data from parent to child component. And how do we pass it? You just name your prop. So in this case we are passing title, so we are going to name our prop as title only here. So you just add it as an attribute, and you give equal to, and you just name whatever the data you want to pass it, you pass that data inside this curly braces. So we want to pass this title, so that's why we are writing this title inside the curly braces, and this title is basically the name of the props or the name of this data. So we are referring it as title only because we are passing a title. And how do we accept this inside this product component? Well, it's pretty simple. You just come here and write props, that's all. And here what you can do is remove this hello product, and you write this curly braces, and you just say props dot title, because we are naming this data as title only. So we are going to say props dot title, and it is accessible. Now if you come here, and you can see the title is visible, a fancy product page. So this is one way of accessing props, but the other way is you can destructure as well. Let's just say you're passing multiple props here, so you can pass multiple props as well. In that way you can easily access the props, and that way is actually you just remove this prop, and you just write curly braces, and you just destructure it. So instead of saying props, you just accept the whatever the data you're passing. Let's just say you're passing title from here, then you just write the name of that data here, and now it becomes directly accessible. You don't need to write props dot title, and in that way also it is accessible. If you come here and refresh, and it is still accessible, a fancy product page. Similarly, you can pass another information as well. Let's just say you want to pass the description. So come here and just say description, and you just say a fancy product description which is super awesome. Let's just say this is the description of your product and you just need to pass. So description is the data you want to pass. So before that you need to name your prop. So I'm going to name the prop as DESC and I'm going to give equal to and curly braces, and inside this curly braces whatever the data you want to pass you just write it here. So you want to pass description, so write description here, that's all. And this DESC is the name of this description data, right? So this is the name of the prop. So you just come here and here give comma and then you just write DESC, that's all. And you just write your p tag here and you can access your description here. You just write DESC and you come here and you can see the description is accessible, a fancy product description which is super awesome. So basically this is how you can pass the data from your parent component to the child component, and this is called prop. So prop is a way to pass data from parent to child component. But is there a way to pass data from this child to parent component? Well, if we look at technically there is no such way, but like we can hack around and we can pass some of the data from child to parent component, but React actually doesn't recommend us to do so because React is a unidirectional data flow. That means we can pass data only in one direction, that is from parent to child component only. React doesn't recommend us to pass data from child to component. It just tells us to pass data only from parent to child, from top to bottom. You don't pass the data from bottom to top. React doesn't recommend us to do so, and that's why we call it React is a unidirectional data flow. All right, now that prop is done, we understood what is prop. Now let us deal with what is state. So in simple term, basically state is the data of your component. Let's just say you have some data or variable inside your component, then you need to declare that inside the state. So I'm going to show you here. Let's just say we are going to build a counter application, simple. So let me write this. How do we declare a state? So you just write const, give this array box, and then you just write give equal to, and you just say use state, and you just import it here. This is how you import it. So you write import curly braces use state and from React. So React is a package which gives us this use state hook. So this is called hook in React, and you just call this use state hook function, that's all. And now you need to name it. So we are trying to create a counter, so I'm going to name this variable as counter, and I'm just going to initialize it. So this is like basically saying, let's just say I'm going to write it as let counter equals to 0. So basically whatever you are doing here, this is actually the same way of doing in React. So you need to do in this way. And now you might be wondering, hey, this is too much of a complicated thing to do. This looks so simple. Well, yeah, this is bit of a simple as compared to this, but React tells us to do in this way only. React doesn't allow us to do in that way. And why React doesn't allow us, I'm going to discuss in a second. You just wait it. And let's just say, so here we have initialized our counter variable with 0, and let's just say you want to update this counter variable, you want to make it 1 on click of a button. So for that we have another method called set state method. So you just need to write set, and whatever the name of the variable, instead of writing state, so you just write the name of that variable. So this is the counter. So if we want to update the counter, we are going to use this set counter method, and here we are going to follow the camel casing styling, and we are going to make C as in capital here. Okay, so whenever we are updating this counter variable from 0 to 1, 2 or 3, we are going to use this set counter method. Cool. Now that let me create a button and let me render the counter here. So here this is a paragraph, so let me remove this expression and let me simply write the counter here, and that we are done with the counter, and 0 should be visible here. You can see 0 is visible on the web page. And now what I want to do is I want to create a button which is saying increment, and on click of that button I want to increment this 0 to 1, 2, 3 and 4 on click of it. So for that I need to write an event which is going to be on click. All right, and I'm going to write a function which is going to say increment counter. So this is the name of the function, okay, increment counter. So let me declare this function here, function increment counter. Okay, so I've declared the function, and now some of you might be thinking, hey, why aren't we doing like this on increment counter here, and why aren't we calling this function directly? Because if we do so, then as soon as we load the page, React basically automatically calls this function. It doesn't wait for this button to click. Okay, so I can give you an example here. So let me log here, and then let me say clicked, and let me save, and let me refresh. And as you can see, as soon as I load, React automatically call this increment counter function, and it is logging me this click. Okay, and why it is giving logging me 2 times instead of logging 1 times? Well, this is because inside this main.js we have something called react.strict mode, which is logging everything in 2 times. So whatever we write inside this console, it is going to be logged 2 times because of this strict mode. If we remove this, then it is going to log just for 1 time only. So in order to avoid this, and in order to call this function only when you click on that button, we are going to remove this expression here, and then now it won't be calling that function immediately. It is going for us to click that button, and now when we click, it is going to log it. Okay, so that's pretty simple. We are done with that. Now what we want to do is, on the click of this button, we want to increment, we want to update this counter variable from 0 to 1 to 3. Okay, we want to update it by 1. We want to make some addition, and I told you, whenever we are updating the state, what we need to do is we need to call this set state method, or in our case we are going to call this set counter method. So let me call this set counter, and since this is a function, now what we need to do is we need to pass this counter here. We basically create a callback function here. Okay, we need to create a callback function, and inside this we need to pass our state as a state variable as a parameter, and here we are going to name this state variable, and we are going to do +1. So this is how actually we update state in React. Okay, and now this is going to work absolutely fine. So now let me come here, let me refresh, and let me hit this increment, and as you can see, now it is incrementing our value, and as soon as I click on this button, it is going to increment the value by 1. Okay, that is done. Now some of you might be wondering, this is too much of a complex thing to handle this state and all. You know what, why do I write this use state hook? Why can't we simply declare this variable count equals to 0 and update here? So let me show you that as well. So we have this counter. Okay, so let me write this as counter. All right, so if I write this counter equals to 0, here I have commented, and I'm basically calling this variable here now. And as you can see, if I log, well, the 0 is visible here. Now can we update this counter variable? It is visible, but can we update? So let us see. So updating is very simple. You know, you just need to do counter is equals to counter +1. So it is going to work or not. Let us just see here first. So we have added the formula here, and it should work, right? So for your satisfaction, let me write this counter variable on top, and let me refresh it, and let me hit this increment button. Well, it is not updating. And why it is so? It is because React has something to do with rendering. So rendering basically means repainting your web page or your component. Okay, so whenever a component gets re-rendered, this entire component gets recalculated and gets repainted with the updated value. Let's just say if I click on this increment count, here our counter got updated to 1, right? Means this state data got updated. So whenever the state data gets updated, this component, entire component gets called, and whatever the child component that is called inside this component, let's just say this is a product which is a child component, that component also get re-rendered. Okay, and whatever the data is updated, that updated data is going to show here. But if we update just the variable without updating the state, then React component is not going to re-render. In our case, if we click on this increment button, actually this counter variable is updating. It is updating from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. It is working fine. but it is not visible on the UI because UI is not updating with the updated data. The UI gets updated only when the state gets updated, and for that reason actually we cannot update the variable directly. If we want to update our data and we want to reflect that updated data on the web page, then in that case we need to use this state. And what is going to happen is, as soon as you try to update this state data, we use this set counter method, right? Or the set state method. In our case we are writing it as set counter. So as soon as we write this set counter method, React, what it is going to do is, it is first going to update this data, and when React understood that this state data is updated, it is going to re-render entire this component with the updated data. And not only that, whatever the child component is called inside this component, in our case the product is a child component that is called, this product component also gets re-rendered with the updated data. And here in our case the updated data is only the counter variable, so that's why counter variables gets updated here. So that if I click on this increment button, the variable gets updated and it gets reflected on the UI. And for that reason, my dear friends, we cannot actually update the variable directly in React. React doesn't allow us to do so. So that's why we need to follow this lengthy process called state, so that the updated data gets reflected on the UI. Now I hope you understood the difference between props and state in React. It is very important. Let me revise it again. So props is a way to pass data from your parent component to the child component, and state is basically the data of your component. And why do we use state instead of directly storing the variable in a variable and updating it? Well, because if we update the variable directly, then it is not going to be reflected on the UI, and for that reason we need to use this use state hook, and we need to create the state. And whenever we are updating the state, we need to use this method set state, and it is going to update the UI. So whenever the state gets changed or whenever the state data gets changed, it is going to update the UI with the latest data. So that's the work of the state. So for that reason we use state inside the component. Now I hope the basics of React is clear. Now let us move forward and create the to-do application using React. There we are going to see the ultimate power of React. So before that, let me clean this code here, right? And let me make it clear once more, and then so that we can start fresh, for that to do application. And I'm going to delete this product component as well. Okay, and now if I clear this out, now this is free, like this is clean, right? We don't have anything, it is empty. Now we'll start with our to do application. So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to create a component called to do here. So I'm going to name it as to do.jsx, and now let me create the to do component. So I'm going to use this shortcut way. I'm just going to write RSC and hit enter, and it is going to automatically generate a component. So for that, actually I have installed a plugin inside this VS Code, which is called this ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippets. You can come here and install this plugin, and it is going to generate this component for you by using some of the shortcut keys like RSC. Okay, so once that we are done, now let me also create a CSS file here. So I'm going to say to do.css. Well, we are also going to write the CSS as well. And here what I need to do is I need to import the CSS file as well. So I'm going to do import dot slash, and as you can see, to do.css. So this is how we actually import the CSS file. And actually I have already written the CSS, so I'm not going to rewrite the entire CSS. I'm just going to copy it from here so that we can actually quickly begin with the code part. And now let me come here. So this is the part of the code for to do.css. So let me copy this, and let me come here and let me paste this out here. Okay, and let me remove this as well. And this is where this is something we are going to paste inside the index.css file. And let me remove this as well, and let me come here and let me go to the index.css, and let me come here and let me replace this and remove this comment as well. And now this is how our page is going to look here. And come here and let me come to the to do css. Here we have a to do container where I have written flexbox, so display flex, justify content center and margin top. And we have this to do card class where basically I have written the css code for making the card. Okay, so that's pretty simple. And let me come to the to do component here. And here, let me write this class name, and inside this class name basically this is the class that I'm going to write to do container here. That's all. And inside this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another div called to do cart. So this is the div that I'm going to create. So I'm just going to say to do cart. Okay, we are done with this. And inside this cart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an h1 tag. Let me indentate it well. And here I'm going to write my to-do list. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So you know what, let me write this in caps and I'm going to say my to-do list. Now I'm going to call this to-do component inside this app.js component. So I'm going to open this angular bracket and I'm going to say to do and hit enter and let me close. And the to do component is auto imported. In your case, if it is not auto imported, make sure you import it properly and then only it is going to work. And let me open this, and as you can see, the card is visible here. It is working. So let me add some of the HTML quickly and then we'll start with the part. So basically what we need to do is we need a to do header here. So we are going to create two more components. So first is to do header component that we are going to create, where it is going to have an input field and an add button. So user is going to type the to do and click on this add button. Okay, and then we are going to create another component called to do list, and here we are going to list out the to do that user has added. Okay, so we need two more component as well. So let me create that two component quickly and then I'll come with the JavaScript part. But before that, let me quickly discuss, like you might be wondering, hey, why are we writing this JSX and instead of writing just JS? Well, because you know that we are basically returning JSX, right? So this is HTML like syntax. This is not HTML. As you can see, instead of writing class, we are writing class name. So this is in JSX. So since we are returning, this is a function which is also called a component in React. And this component basically is returning JSX, right? Every time we write a component, every component is returning JSX. So that's why instead of writing JS, we are writing JSX. But let's just say you have created a file which is not returning any JSX and it is just having plain old JavaScript code. Then you can remove this X and then you can just write JS instead of JSX. Okay, so that's the thing. But when you are returning JSX and if you don't write JSX and you just write .js, then basically React is going to throw you an error. So for that reason, we are writing JSX. And if you're using TypeScript also, so you cannot write TS, you need to write TSX. Okay, so we are cool with that. Now let us quickly create another component called to do header. Okay, so let me write to do header .jsx and let me quickly create the component using the shortcut RSC, and there you go, we have created the component. Let me create a CSS file as well. So I'm going to say to do header.css, and as you all know, I have already written the CSS for to do header as well. So let me cut this out. Let me come here and let me write it here. And we have written here CSS for input field. So this is the styling that we are going to add. You can well pause the video and you can write this CSS, and this is the CSS for the button that we will be writing. Okay, and now let me import the CSS. How do you import? It's very simple. You just write import / and the name of the CSS file. So it is to do header. Okay, so this is what we are going to import here, and that's all. We are done with the import. So we have created this to do header component. Now let us write this JSX code here inside this to do header. So firstly, what do we need? We need an input field, right? So we are going to first give class to this there before assigning the input field, and we are going to name this class as add input. Okay, and here what we are going to do is we are going to create one more div which is not going to have any class, just a plain div. And inside this we are going to create our input field, all right, which is going to have a type of text. And let me bring this property bit down here, okay, and it is going to have type text. We are also going to add a class name, and it is going to have class name of input field, okay, field. That is done. And let me add a placeholder as well. Okay, VS Code is not auto suggesting in this case, and here I'm going to say add new to do. That's all. So we are done with this, and under this div we are going to create a button, okay, and let me create this button which is simply going to say add to do. That's all. Okay, let me remove the typo, and let me add one more class which is going to have this button class. The CSS are already written here, you can pause and you can write. And let me come here. Well, it is not showing it because we haven't imported it. So we are going to import this to do header inside this to do component. Okay, so here we are going to say to do header. Okay, that's all. And now what is going to happen is we are importing this header of the to do inside this to do, and this code, what is going to happen is this code is going to come here and it is going to paste here. And similarly we are exporting this to do component and we are importing inside this app component, and all the code here is going to come and paste here, and similarly it is going to be reflected here, okay, via this index.html file, because this app component is also being exported here inside this main.jsx file, and whatever the code we see here, this code is going to be returned towards this index.html file via this react.dom.createRoot, right? We know that inside this index.html we have this div id which is having root, and we are grabbing this div here and we are actually putting all those HTML code inside this div. So this is what react.dom.createRoot is basically doing. So everything is handled by React under the hood. And let us come to our to-do header, and as you can see the to-do header is visible here. It is beautiful header. So we are done with the header, okay, and now let us create the listing of the to-do as well. So let us start with the logic part quickly. So in order to store the to-do item, well, we are going to use state, right? Why we are using state instead of simple variable? You know that whenever we will be updating to-do later, at that time the updated to-do needs to be reflected on that web page, right? We just don't want to make this web page unresponsive, right? If user is adding the to-do, then we want to be reflected that added to-do on that web page, and that can only be done using state, because whenever the state gets updated, the page gets re-rendered, right, with the updated data. That's the work of state. So that's why we will be using state in order to store the to-do instead of using the random variable. I hope the concept of state is clear to you now. So let me quickly create the state here. Let me give this array box, and let me call this use state hook here, and let me hit enter. And as you can see, it is imported here. Make sure you import. VS Code is auto importing for me. I'm sure VS Code might not be auto importing for you, so make sure you import it properly. Okay, and let's just name the to do variable. So here we are simply going to name this to do variable as to do list, and we need to update also. For that we need to create set method. For that we are just going to say set to do list, and you all know we are following camel casing, so I'm going to make this capital T here, and we need to initialize these also. So this is basically going to be an array, and inside this array we are going to have an object, and each to do is going to have its ID. So we are going to generate a random ID using JavaScript date function. We're going to write this function date.now, and it is going to give unique ID to each to do. All right, and then we are also going to have the title of the to do. Okay, so here I will be writing go to the gym. So let me type it correctly. So go to the gym. So basically we have initialized our to-do list state variable here. So we are done with this. Okay, and now we need to list out this also. So for that we will be creating one more component called to-do list component. So let me quickly create this component as well. So not before, so to-do list dot jsx. Okay, so let me come here and let me hit rsc. So we are done now. Well, we need css as well, right? So for that case, let me create this css file quickly. So I'm going to name it as to-do list dot css. Okay, we are done. Now let me import this here. So I'm going to write this import dot forward slash and to-do list. So where it is here. So I've selected this. We are done. Now let me get that css quickly. Okay, so let me cut this css. Let me close this out. Okay, yeah, don't save, and let me come here and let me paste. So we are done with the css. So here we have three css class. The first is to-do list container. I've used flexbox, row gap, and another is to do item, again flexbox, and some padding and background. And we have to do del for the delete button. Okay, we have color, font weight, and cursor pointer. That's all. So that's the css. Pause the video and write it. Okay, so now let us come to this to do list, and we are going to name the class, which is going to be class name of to-do list. All right, so we are done with this to-do list. And now, okay, so what we are going to do is, we are not going to name this as to-do list, we are going to name this as to-do list container. Okay, and now what we need to do is, I need to pass this to-do list data right inside this to-do list component, and then I need to render those data. And how do we pass this data from parent to child? Well, you got the right answer. Yes, that's prop. We use prop. So before that, let us call that to-do list component here quickly. So let me call this to-do list component. Okay, so we are done here. And now let me pass this data using prop. So let me write the name of the prop. I'm going to name it as to-do list only. Well, because this is the list of the to-do. And what I want to pass? Well, I want to pass this to-do list. So let me write to-do list here. So we are done with the to-do list data. And now let me grab this here by this structuring to-do list. Okay, now how do we render? So it's pretty simple. I already told you we need to write curly braces, and that's all. Now we are free to write JavaScript inside the JSX by writing this curly braces. And let me write to-do list dot map. Okay, and this is well going to give me an individual to do, and here I'm going to return our div. Okay, that's all. So let me write this div properly. All right, so we are done with this div. Now this div is going to have a class. Okay, and that class is to do item. Okay, so hyphen and item, because it is returning an individual to do item. All right, now this to do list is going to have the name of the to do. So for that, we are going to write this p tag. So let me indent it well and indent it well. Okay, and here let me write this curly braces, and let me write the title. So as we all know that this to-do list is a list of array, and inside this array we have an object of each to-do, and each to-do is having its id and title. So we want to grab this title, so we need to set to-do dot title here. So that's why I'm going to say to-do dot title. And we also need a delete button, so that if user is done with that task, user can delete that to do, right? So we need a delete button. So for that, I am going to create another paragraph, and I'm going to add a class name which is going to have to do delete. All right, and here what I'm going to write is delete. That's all. We are done. And let me come here, and as you can see, go to the gym and delete, but it is not in line, and we are getting some error also. Well, I'm going to come to this error in a bit. Don't worry, here I have missed something intentionally so that I can show you later. Before that, let me fix this small css issue. Okay, so it is not items, it is going to be item, Let me come here, and well, now it is fixed. Okay, and now what we need to do is, you know what, let me just duplicate this object here, and let me add one more object, and let me write here learning react. Okay, so let me do this. Okay, and let me save this. Okay, now we have two to do item, and let me come here, let me refresh, and as you can see we have go to the gym and learning react. Okay, now if you come to this error, and let me look this error closely, let me zoom it a bit for you, and let me read this here. So it is saying warning, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Check the render method of to-do list. So it is saying us to check this to-do list, and it is saying each child. So let me come to this to-do list, and it is saying each child should have a unique key prop. So what it is saying, so let me show you here. Okay, and so basically what it is saying is, well, we are rendering a list of to-dos here, right? So here we are rendering two to-dos, and later we might add multiple to-dos. And let's just say user click on this delete button and want to delete this learning react to-do. So as soon as I click on this delete button, this to-do needs to be deleted. But how will the react understand that this is the actual to-do that user wants to delete, and not this go to the gym? So for that, each to do is going to have unique id, right? So that react can understand that we actually want to delete this to do. So that's why it can use delete that actual to do that user is wanting to delete, and not the other to do that user is not willing to delete. So that's why react is giving these errors. It is saying, hey, you haven't given us any unique id, you haven't given me any unique id. For right now, for me both these to do seem similar. I cannot distinguish both the to dos. In order to distinguish both the to dos, I need some kind of a key so that I can distinguish, and so that later user click on this delete button, I can easily delete that. So user React is expecting some kind of a key to us, and for that what we need to do is we need to come here, and we need to add an attribute called key, and that key needs to be unique for every item that we are looping here. And how do we get that unique key? Well, we all know that each to do has its own unique id, so we are going to pass that unique id of to do as key. So let me write to do dot key. Okay, now as soon as I said, the error is going to go just like the magic. So let me refresh it, and as you can see, error is gone. Well, it is still persisting, that means I've done some typo. So let me come here quickly. Okay, silly mistake. So this is not an I key, it needs to be ID, right? Now the error is going to go for sure. Let me refresh, and still it is giving. So why it is so? So it is saying encounter two children with the same key. Well, because what is going to happen is we made a simple mistake while assigning the unique ID. Well, actually, well, JavaScript was giving the ID using that dot. Now it was giving the same ID. So in that case, what we are going to do is, let me manually add unique ID just for this to do. Okay, so that's why it is highly recommended that you don't use date dot now for passing this key ID. Okay, so it is highly recommended you don't do, but in this case I'm using date dot now just for the explanation purposes. Okay, now let me refresh, and error is going completely. Okay, but instead of, you know what, instead of using this id, what you can do is you can come here, and you can also pass the index here. Okay, you can come here, and you can write index, and you can pass index as well here as a unique id. But again, index is also not recommended. It is highly recommended you pass a unique id, and you have some of the packages, npm packages like uuid, for generating the unique id that you can pass here. But I don't want to overcomplicate it with adding extra packages in this React crash course, so that's why I'm just using date dot now as of now. But in the future project we can use npm packages also, that I'm going to do in the later tutorial. So let us get started with this to do application only. So the UI of our to do is ready. Now we need to add some of the functionalities, like let's just say if user types something here, the to do needs to be added, right? And if user clicks here, the to do needs to be deleted. So let us quickly add those functionalities here. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function called add to do for adding the to do. Okay, so this is going to be add to do, and this function is going to receive a to do item that we are going to add. And how do we add the to do? It is simple. We are going to use this method called set to do list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this array, and first I'm going to destructure all the list of the to-dos that we have. I'm going to list out here. I'm going to write comma, and I'm going to add one more extra to-do, this that is given to us by this add to-do function. So why am I doing so? Why am I not coming here directly and instead of writing all this thing, instead of destructuring, why am I not actually directly writing this to do? Well, because if I do it so, then all the rest of the to do that we already have is going to be deleted, because in React this function is immutable. Okay, you cannot directly change or update. Okay, so like what you need to do is it is completely going to delete whenever we are going to update it. So for that reason, what we need to do is we need to take the list of all the to do that we have. So that's why we write in this format. So first we destructure all the to do that we already have inside this array, and then we add one more to do, and then we update this array. And what React is going to do, it is going to delete all the rest and it is going to update with the new one. So we are safe in that case. So that's why we update the state in this way. Okay, so we are done with the add to do function, and now what we are going to do is we are going to pass this add to do function as a prop to this to do header method. Okay, we are passing as a prop, and now this to do header method is going to receive this here. All right, and here in this button we are going to write on click event, and it is going to call this function called handle click. So let me quickly write this function here, which is handle click. Okay, so the function is done here, and here we need to call this add to do function, and we need to pass the to do here. So for that, what I need to do is whatever the user has typed here, I need to grab that value. So how do we grab that? So in JavaScript it was simple, right? How do we used to do in JavaScript? Well, we just used to have this class, right? And we used to do document dot, right? Okay, let me write this query selector, document dot query selector. We used to select this, and we just used to write dot value, right? And then we used to get the value, right? So it was pretty simple in JavaScript. How do we do this in React? So React offers us something called ref in order to do the same thing. So we need to write this use ref hook in React. So here I'm trying to select this input ref. So I'm going to name the variable as input. Okay, so input ref, because I want to select this input element, so I'm naming this variable as input ref, and here I'm going to call this hook called use ref. Okay, and you need to import here from the React, and I'm going to call this, that's all. And now I want to select this input element. Now what you need to do is, once I have initialized this input ref variable using this use ref hook, I need to come here inside this input element, and I need to add this attribute called ref, and I need to attach this input ref variable. That's all. Now using this input ref variable, I can basically access this input element. So it's simple. Let me show you here. Let me come here and let me log. Okay, and let me log this input ref, come here, and then let me click this add to do. Now as you can see, it is returning, input ref element is returning me an object, and inside this object we have current, and inside this current we basically have this input element. So here if I do input ref dot current, then basically I'm going to get that input element. You can see I'm getting that input element. Now if I write here dot value, then I'm going to get that value whatever the user is typing here, right? So that is pretty simple. Now let me remove this and let me come here, okay, and let me create a to do. Okay, so I'm just going to create a to do, which is going to be an empty object, not an empty object, basically a to do, and it is going to have an ID, and we are going to get that ID using JavaScript method date dot now. We got the ID. Now we need title as well, and the title is going to be basically input ref dot current dot value. So whatever the user has typed, right? So that is going to be the title. And what we are going to do is we are going to add that to do here inside this add to do function. Okay, and now this add to do function is going to be triggered inside this to do, and here it is going to update the to do. Okay, hopefully it should work. Let us come here, let me refresh this. Okay, and let me say watching. Okay, instead of watching I'm going to write watch react crash course, and let me hit add to do. As you can see, it is working fine, it is adding. But what we need to do is once the user hit this add to do button, we need to empty this also. So how can we do that? So that is pretty simple. Let me come to this to do header. Okay, and as soon as user comes here and we pass this, what we can do is we can get this input ref dot current dot value. Okay, let me command G or control G, and let me come here and I'm going to assign it empty string so that we can empty the value, and now it should work. And now we have this watch react crash course again. Now let me add this, and as you can see now the field is empty. Okay, now we need to work on delete button also, but before that let me show you something. We have missed something. Now if I click on this add to do, it is adding me empty to do, but I don't want to do that, right? So you know what, let us add some warning whenever user tries to add empty to do. So that is pretty simple. Here we need to write an if statement, and what we need to do is we need to just come here and we need to write this: if the input value is not empty, okay, if not equals to empty, then only we are going to add the to do. All right, only in that case we will be adding the to do. And let me align it well, and let me return this. Okay, and we are going to return this. But if it is not empty, then what we are going to do is we are simply going to write the alert method, which is going to say add your to do properly. Okay, let me write properly. Okay, so or you can write to do field cannot be empty. Okay, and let me come here. Now if I try to add empty to do, you know, I'm getting add your to do properly. And now if I add some to do like practice JavaScript, okay, now practice JavaScript, and now if I add, now it is adding. But if I try to add empty, it is not allowing me. It is saying add your to do properly. So we are done with the adding function. Now let us work on the deleting function of to do list. So let us come here inside the to do list, and we will be working here. Okay, so here we need to write a function on click, but before that we need to create this delete to do here. Let me copy this function, you know, and let me write it as delete to do. Okay, delete to do here. And what we expect is this delete to do is going to give us the ID of the to do that we want to delete it. And here what we want to do is basically first we will destructure the entire to do here, and we are basically going to filter the to do. So we are going to say filter, and this filter is going to return the to do, and we are going to filter that particular to do. So we are going to say to do dot id, okay, not equals to to do id, and that's how we are going to delete the to do. Okay, so we need to get this to do id. So how do we get? We can get that using this to-do list component. So here we need to pass this delete to-do function here. Okay, and let me come to the delete to-do list and let me receive this prof. Okay, and here we need an on click function. Okay, or on click event handler. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply pass a function, and inside this I'm going to call this delete to do function, and here I'm going to simply pass the id of the to do that user wants to delete using to do dot id. That is pretty simple, and now it should work. So we are passing that id of the to do into this delete to do function. Now it is going to remove, it is going to get that, and hopefully it is going to remove that to do. So let us see here whether it works or not. Let me try to delete this empty. Wow, it's working. Now let me remove this practice.js. Well, it is working, guys, completely fine. Let me delete this, go to the gym. It is working. So our to do is working completely fine here. So, alright guys, this was the complete introduction to React.js course for beginners. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you have coded along with me and you understood the introductory concept of React. I will be coming with more such React videos, and I'm going to teach you React in depth. Till then, please like this video and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.